Our next category consists of the utmost intrigue. The entries here within demand you put on your robe and wizard hat, your trench coat and magnifying glass, and probe their contents to your heart's content. It's the category that'll transport you back to kindergarten, when you first learned who, what, where, when, and why. Whether the who is the butler or the where is Imperial China, this category will have you on the edge of your seat. Here are your nominees for. Your nominees for. You're not. Okay, enough leaving you in suspense. Here are your nominees for Best Suspense of 2024.
僕に労力の無駄遣いをさせたことを後悔させてやる。モーリス・コール。
マジか。マジです。
演出キャメラ思い違いな怪人俺たちは守ってるだけだ
そんなこと償ってもらわないと。
ダメだよ幼いさん。
これ毒です。意外と思ったわね。丈夫なこと。でも壊れたお人形はいらないの。
And your winner for the Best Jury and Audience nominee
is The Apothecary Diaries.
Hooray!
I can't say that this is necessarily a very surprising winner. Wouldn't you agree?
It was a very popular show. It would more surprise me that it came out of the jury as opposed to the actual popular vote. But
yeah,
what do you think the jury would lean more towards then, if not this?
I actually thought they might lean more toward Yadagarasu.
Really?
That kind of seemed more like a jury pick to me. Obviously, I like Dead Demons, Dead Destruction, but
yeah, that was both of our anime.
I didn't know you had a stutter.
So yeah, I flubbed it. Sorry. Mononoke being second though is kind of surprise to me in the jury picks.
I don't know. I feel like it's very jury core. Did y'all watch the Mononoke movie?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And was it not fabulous? Like, does it not deserve? I mean, if anything, Apothecary Diaries beating out both Mononoke and DDD is kind of the upset here.
Yeah. I mean that's kind of what I was getting at. But yeah, it's kind of it was more the like Mononoke is just not as talked about as like a Dedede or Apothecary. That kind of surprised me. They ended up in number 2 here. As far as like the actual merit of it, like it is a great movie.
It really does a good job at taking what the original TV show did like well over a decade ago at this point and like transposing that into a much more modern context animation wise, because like it's so well. It uses like CG so well. It's just a gorgeous anime to look at. And I can't believe they're doing 2 more. It's kind of insane.
2 more. I knew about the next one, obviously, but
yeah,
I didn't realize it was a trilogy. Man,
I think the funny thing about this category to us is just suspense as like a term. It's like, okay, so how are we judging these? Because like you obviously have like a very wide spectrum of what is quote unquote suspense, right? So Apothecary Diaries is kind of more in line with a kind of mystery, almost like a Detective Conan or Sherlock Holmes kind of story with a lot of its arcs where it kind of sets up a mystery to be solved. You kind of are given some of the tools for which to kind of figure it out for yourself, and then it gives you its own solution. But then you get like, Go-Go Loser Ranger, which is less so a mystery in that regard and more so just kind of a thriller, right? Like it's more how is he going to
and subterfuge.
Yeah, like how is he going to navigate this sort of system and beat these characters that are larger in life and much stronger than he is. So you kind of have a full spectrum of like what is quote unquote suspense. Whereas like something like Shoshimen there's nothing very suspenseful about Shoshimen. It's a mystery show.
There's a car bombing. I'm sorry, that's a spoiler.
I guess that arc, but yeah. I'm thinking like the majority, like it's just like, oh, how did he make hot cocoa with only 3
That's so
cups and no?
suspenseful.
Is that really suspenseful?
Well,
I mean,
it's a matter of
Which cookie has the hot sauce in it? Who knows?
It's able to take like these very mundane things, like similar to a Hyoka, obviously, and it's able to take them and make them into something that is actually very like suspenseful. It's like, yeah, how did they make that hot chocolate? What do they do? And then you get to the answer.
Grin, they have a point here. Was it kind of hard deciding out of which one of these was the best, considering they are kind of different, or was Apothecary Diaries kind of like far and away the winner for you guys?
Specifically, Mononoke and DDD also had a couple people like really supporting it like at the top. But I think like the reason why Apothecary like ended up winning is because like first of all, there's a lot of people like they really liked it, and secondly, like the other people like who are more split on what they would put at number one, they still put it at number two. I think also
Ah,
a lot of the other shows in the top, they also are like more contentious as compared to Apothecary. Like for example, Day to Day, which I think was fairly close to winning. There's like the episode 0 and episode 17, like the ending, which kind of like it makes the series like
Yeah.
worse in a lot of people's opinions.
so you're saying it's almost like a Rotten Tomatoes thing, where like Rotten Tomatoes, the score is actually like the number of people who rated it above a 6, rather than like the actual. So like Apothecary Diaries is a Marvel movie, and DDD is like the brutalist. Is that is that the gist?
I wouldn't quite say that because like there's also like a lot of genuine support behind like Apothecary. But yeah, I would not say necessarily like that everyone would have put it at number one because that's not what
Mhm.
happened. But it just like it consistently with like the protagonist like Mao Mao, like a lot of people just like love her, right?
I
yeah,
Um
mean,
that was great.
she's so great. She'll
yeah,
slap a bitch.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's like a very strong point for the series.
Sai movie. What did you think about like the kind of main criticism of DDD? I mean, considering that it's your anime of the years, other than Look Back, obviously. But what do you think about the whole episode 0, or where would you watch it personally?
That's easy. Episode 0, you actually just watched the second to last episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
It literally feels like they just took what would be actually episode 17 and just put it at the front as
Yeah.
episode 0. So
We were actually fortunate because someone pointed that out to us before we started watching it. They're like,
yeah,
"Hey,
so we didn't deal with
don't
that at
watch
all.
episode 0." We're like, "Oh, okay." And so we just didn't watch it, and we just consumed it like you would have consumed the manga, and we were like, "Wow, this is great. We love it." And then we figured out to watch episode 0 at 17 or whatever it was,
Yeah, it's
and,
the second to last episode.
basically had an extra episode that week.
So you don't agree with the production company's intent of like, oh, we'll hook them in with this crazy
I
episode, and
No.
then
not only do I not agree with it, I have literally no idea what they were thinking because I don't think that episode is a
Can I?
good hook at all.
I mean,
It's just
it's the problem, I guess, of like adaptation where like you get like a Haruhi, right? And the solution for Haruhi's adaptation is like, okay, everyone knows the story in the light novels. So how do we make this more interesting for the people who are fans of it already? And I guess with Day to Day, they thought, oh, we'll just reveal everything so you get a taste of what's gonna come and see that
and the
animated, but it doesn't really work. I don't know.
no, especially when it's like that's like the end of the show. That's the end of the story you're just showing me, and it's not like portrayed in a particularly like clever way. Again, it literally just feels
No.
like they structured everything. They wrote every episode front to back, episode 1 to technically 18. And it's like, all right, that's second to last episode. We're just gonna put that out there first for everyone. And it's like, why would you do that?
I guess to be fair, it doesn't spoil like a lot of the stuff you'll be watching it for. It spoils the main plot element, but like you're watching it more for the characters, right? The
Yeah.
interactions between Oran and the whole
But
group.
even in that regard, it does not hook you in any way for that either.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Those characters are not in that episode.
I guess it hooks you for like, oh look, everything's gonna get fucked up. Come watch the show.
Have fun.
So ultimately, it's almost like a lack of faith in the beginning, because I guess they were trying to avoid what's commonly attributed to like Steins Gate or something of like, oh, the beginning's really slow, but you don't worry, it gets really good. When I don't know, I feel like the typical anime fan, or at least people in our fandom, they're like the beginning was so engaging because
Oh
of the whole
yeah,
character dynamic and the kind of off nature of the world
the
and the
setting,
interesting
yeah.
cinematography. Yeah.
Well, like that juxtaposition of like them just being normal high school kids and doing about their life, and then they just look up and there's a giant like spaceship in the middle of the city. You're just like, oh, this is
Oh,
ominous.
Grin, would you say that that's kind of the main reason why DDD ends up being like kind of more third? I mean, like you said, right? Like that has like at least a point of contention, while something like Apothecary Diaries, it's like, oh my god, Mau Mau is so great.
First of all, I want to say something about like the adaptation order, right? Like in Japan, they aired like 2 day-to-day movies, right?
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those covered episodes 1 through 16. So like episode 0 being like released afterwards is kind of like, I guess, a sort of continuation of the movies in that way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like an alternate route from what I understood, because like the way the movies end is different from how the TV series ends. So it's almost like an alternate route thing they're going for in a way.
Something going on.
Yeah.
Nothing can
Yeah.
ever be simple with Inio Asano, it seems.
No.
But besides that, like there is also like quite a conservative adaptation of the manga, right? Like it was pretty heavily supervised by Asano himself, so a lot of people like speculate that that also had a lot of influence on the anime being quite
Mm.
like pretty statically animated, and like a lot of the stuff is like taken quite directly from the manga. And some people's opinion, like it really hurt like the potential that the adaptation had for it. And besides that, there's also a lot of like fluff content. Some people would say like a lot of talk about like the machines or whatever that are going to kill the aliens, and a whole political subplot that some people just don't really care for that much. Like I think pretty much everyone agreed that like Oran and her like fan group, they were like great, right? But
Yeah, can we just
Yeah, yeah.
agree that Oron completely mogs Mau Mau?
I mean, I personally do agree, but yeah,
I don't even like the I don't know. I love the basically political satire elements of day to day. It's so it reminded me almost of like a Godzilla minus one kind of thing. I mean, obviously, day
Yeah,
to day is very much a response to 311 very
yeah,
explicitly. So
yeah.
yeah.
and so it's obviously really digging into that whole like, oh yeah, the government's kind of incompetent when it comes to handling disasters.
Yeah.
That's not
Like
very suspenseful.
it's a
No,
very like it's very cynical
very
cynical take
cynical.
on the government, right?
But I mean,
Mhm.
based in reality, right? Which is the whole
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Asano, like he whatever. I actually watched like the episode you two did on the disaster anime, right?
Mm.
Mhm.
And in there, like Paulson Select, he mentions the book, whatever it's called, the Happy Youth of a Desperate Country, right? And a lot of stuff from there, like, is also like very cynical about the government. It portrays like that youth, they don't have no faith in it, and I think like Oran especially, like, she also mirrors that, right? She doesn't believe the government will do anything.
Yeah, I mean, conspiracy stuff is very baked into the show in general.
like my take on the show, my favorite part of the show is always about how all this stuff is going around, and they're living with this like kind of a constant impending threat. Like I mean, literally, right? Like you can see it; it's looming
Mhm.
above you. But at the end of the day, life has to continue on, and you see them progress through their lives and try to have normal relationships and go to school and get regular jobs and have connections
Yeah.
and such. And then and see, that's why I think a lot of people, they kind of turn their nose up at the ending, because the ending feels a little anticlimactic for the kind of show that it is. But for me, I felt like that was like the whole point of the show at all.
Mhm.
So it felt quite fitting for me.
It very much plays into that idea of like the endless everyday and this kind of view that the end of the world is not the end of the world really. You see this a lot in anime where, the end of the world happens, the world falls apart, and then like, Japan picks themselves up by their bootstraps and they're up and running again within the next 6 weeks. And it's like, "Oh, yep, life just keeps going on." And I think that's something that comes through very heavily in day to day, and was
Yeah.
initially like a big like something like that roped me in pretty quickly. Is just the way it handles that idea.
I mean, funnily enough, I see a lot of that in Mao Mao as well. I mean, Mao Mao is a girl who just out of the blue one day gets kidnapped and then ends up in this like palace court, but then she just kind of shrugs her shoulders and goes, "Hey, I got to make do with what has happened to me," and then makes the best out of her situation. So I think there's a little bit of a parody there.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I really appreciate Apothecary Diaries and Yatagrasu to a lesser extent because I didn't haven't finished it yet. But like the sort of suspense that's generated and the thrill that's generated from these like high society kind of conflicts where it's like relatively low stakes, in the sense that like it's usually like, oh no, she's wearing the same perfume or she's doing this, but like it has high consequences in the sense of like you could be
Mm.
kicked out, your livelihood could be ruined. Stuff like Rose of Versailles always kind of comes to mind for that kind of thing. And this is kind of in line with that, where except instead of it being in Versailles, it's in China. Yagarasu is in a fictional sort of feudal era Japan setting.
Yeah, that's sort of like high society thing where everything basically just comes down to status and flexing on everyone else.
Yeah,
Mm,
there's nothing
mhm.
that's more invigorating sometimes than just like someone walking into a ball or a gala and be like, "Oh, she wore that same dress. What am I gonna do now?" He was like, "Oh shit, what is she gonna do?"
Oh no, this is gonna be a horrible reference to end on because no one's gonna know what the hell I'm talking about. There's this famous painting, and it's of a big ballroom. But the problem is that this father and his like two or three daughters have shown up, but it's very obvious that they've shown up early and they've shown up wearing like kind of the wrong dress. So like the dresses they have on are very frilly and poofy and stuff.
Mm,
So it's kind of this like
a faux pas.
capturing of this huge faux pas and like the kind of imminent destruction that is about to come, but like it's not like a physical destruction, it's
Mhm.
like a social status kind of thing. And yeah, I think that encaptures everything we've discussed very well. But that's no, not to leave everyone in suspense. All these shows are if you're a fan of suspense, if you like to be thrilled, you can't really go wrong with any of these. Whether you want to see court drama in Imperial China, or you want to see like the wonderful animation in Mononoke, or the kind of endless everyday aspects of DDD. I want to thank you guys for coming on and then chatting
Oh
with me
yeah,
about it.
thanks
Thanks
for
for
having
having
us.
us.
We appreciate it.
All right, and on to the next one. Bye bye.